Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those who are attending in online. Guys, everybody, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those who are attending in online. Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those who are attending in online. Okay. Right, sir. Now, please check it. Then, what we completed there in the last session. Hibernate features we understood that. After understanding that Hibernate features, now here we have to understand about like what the Hibernate architecture. Then, what exactly this Hibernate architecture? What you are having about this Hibernate architecture? Just 1 minute here, we are going to understand. I think already given some type of diagram, right? Right, sir. See this actually, then what exactly this Hibernate architecture here? How this architecture is available? Right. So inside this Hibernate architecture, we are having Hibernate software. Okay. Then at one side client application persistence object, at other side database, Hibernate configuration file, Hibernate mapping file. These are the names actually. I can give names clearly. Right. This is like what the configuration file, Hibernate configuration file, Hibernate mapping file. Okay, fine. What exactly the work here we are going to do now inside this architecture? First of all, let's understand what exactly the job of the client application. Okay. Then later on, before that, what exactly the purpose of the Hibernate configuration file? What is the purpose of the mapping file? Entity.hvm.xml is available, mapping file, then database. Okay. Now this is like what the database. Database. What is the purpose of each and every one here? We are understanding clearly. Alright, so now let's understand this Hibernate configuration file. This Hibernate configuration file is able to have Hibernate configuration file is able to have all the database configurations. That means Hibernate configuration details. What Hibernate configuration details here we want to provide there? Just 1 minute. This is like what the Hibernate configuration file. Okay. Then what it is able to have there? Hibernate configuration file contains connection properties, transactions properties, connection pooling properties, and so on. What exactly the connection properties here we are able to have there? If you observe this clearly, first one is driver underscore class. For example, I want to use like the driver class name is like what then? Com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. Okay. Now this is like what I'm telling the driver class. Next one is driver URL jdbc colon mysql colon slash s localhost colon 3306 slash database name. Then what is the database name? No, Durga DB for example. Next one is username, database username. That would be like what the root. Database password. That should be like what the root. That should be like what their password. These type of details here we are able to have, and so on and so on and so on. These type of details we are able to have inside Hibernate configuration file. Everybody understand this clearly. Then what is the requirement of these no right? Hibernate software required some properties which are used to connect with the databases, and which are used to create connections and statement objects and so on with the databases. So which properties are required to create connections and to create statements or prepare statement and so on, that properties must be provided inside the Hibernate configuration file. This is the point here we can understand clearly. Alright, sir. Now let us understand the points here what I have given there here clearly in the document here. Alright, sir. I'm going to provide this document here. I'm going to provide this total diagram here. But from the diagram here, I'm telling here from the above architecture, from the above architecture, Hibernate configuration file, Hibernate configuration file will provide all the configuration details, like driver class name, comma driver URL, comma database username and password and so on, which are required to the Hibernate software to connect with the database and to create statement or prepared statement. Okay. Instead of saying this create and all these things later on to connect with the database. Right. This is what exactly the meaning of like what their Hibernate configuration file. That's nice. Okay, that's it guys. Now these are details about like what their Hibernate configuration file that we understood. There we provided like what there all the JDBC parameters, such kind of things. No, whatever the things we required, all these details here we are able to provide inside this particular thing. Okay, clear. This Hibernate software will use that. Hibernate software will use all these details. Well, establish the communication, establish the connection with the database. Good. Next one is apart from this, what exactly the meaning of like what there mapping file? What exactly the meaning of mapping file? What is the requirement of it? What we are able to do with this mapping file here? If you observe this punch here, Understand clearly the mapping file purpose is what there. It is able to provide mapping between a class and a table, ID property and primary key column, normal properties, normal columns. So this I want to say, this file is also be called as like what there, Hibernate mapping file. Hibernate mapping file. Okay. Hibernate mapping file. What this Hibernate mapping file is able to provide actually, for example, if I take a table employee, there employee is a class name. That employee class is mapped with the EMP1 table, for example. Inside this, ENO is a primary key, that means ID column at a database site, ENO. Next one is ename, ename, ecell, ecell, EADDR, EADDR. Like these are the mapping details here what you are able to have. Okay, these mapping details are provided. They'll also be required for us. Right, that's okay, fine. Next one is apart from this, and yeah. Now let's observe carefully what you are understanding there about this mapping file here clearly. Right, Hibernate mapping file is able to provide mapping between the class comma ID property comma normal property with the database table comma primary key column comma normal column and so on. This is mainly the mapping between the content key. Fine, leave this much here. So mapping file and configuration file here we understood clearly. Right, sir. Next one is after that. What exactly the purpose of the client application? Here we have to understand the client application. How client application is able to perform. Now here also we need to have some communication. Yes, both are related here. Yeah, okay, fine. Client application here, what it is able to perform. Client application is able to perform few operations. What are the few operations that are performed here at client applications? No. All right, now number one. First one is activate Hibernate software. First of all, activate Hibernate software. Second one is create persistence object with the persistence data. Create persistence object with the persistence data. Next one is what they perform persistence operations. Perform persistence operations. Like these are the three things here we have to perform. Client can perform these three things. Okay. Now let's understand this point here. Client application. Client application is able to perform the following actions. What are the various activities here we have to do there? Activate Hibernate software. Alright, then what we will do? Activate Hibernate software. Here, Hibernate software will take all the configuration details. Hibernate software will take all the configuration details from the Hibernate configuration file. From the Hibernate configuration file, and the Hibernate software. And the Hibernate software will set up. Hibernate software will set up the required JDBC environment internally. Required JDBC environment internally to perform database operations. What is this JDBC environment internally? JDBC environment internally, like what there? Connection, statement, and so on. The basic environment that is required here. Okay. This is what exactly the work here we required. What exactly the things we required here about to activate the Hibernate software. If you activate the Hibernate software, then what we have to do? This is what exactly that internal work is going to be happen. The next one is like what they create the persistence. Create the persistence object with the persistence data. Yes, it's like what they just creating a bean class object. Now normal POSO classes or Java bean classes here we are going to take. Those objects here we are going to create. Okay, fine. Here we have to create a POSO object. POSO object in the sense Java bean object only, plain word Java object, POSO object with the data which you want to use. With the data which you want to use in the with the data which we want to use in the persistence operations. Definitely. Here we are going to perform some operations. In that operations here we are able to use this particular data. Alright, then after this, perform persistence operations. Here we will use here we will perform all the database operations. Here we will perform all the database operations by executing Java methods. Not required to write SQL queries. Hibernate is again is to write the SQL queries, guys. Observe carefully. By executing Java methods, not required to write SQL queries. Okay. Please recognize this. Then what exactly the points I'm telling there about this content kit. Okay. That's fine. Then after completion of this, then what next one here we are able to understand. Now here the point is what, after understanding this content here, now see the diagram here clearly, that the three activities here we are performing. Now I want to show somewhat flow of execution about this content. Now try to understand it clearly. Not just I want to give some flow of execution. Now try to understand it now. For example, in the database I have a table. My table name is like what there, EMP1 for example. Where in EMP1, ENO, ename, ECell, three columns are existed. Only three columns. Of course, EADR is also existed here. Just I'm going to use up to these three columns now. This is a table. In the database, this table is existed. Yeah, before that we created already this table. Please remember this. Okay, part of the database it is available. Now here, what I'm telling there, first of all, activate Hibernate software. When I try to activate Hibernate software, what Hibernate software is doing there, see some methods are available to activate Hibernate software. Just like creating connection of configuration object. After creating configuration object, then creating session factory object. Then when we create session factory object, automatically data, that means automatically Hibernate software will get data from the configuration file. After getting the data from configuration file, by using the data, all the configuration details, by using the data, it able to establish the connection. Between Hibernate software and like what there, the database. This is going to be happen initially when we activate Hibernate software. When we activate Hibernate software, automatically Hibernate software will take the required configuration details and it able to establish connection. It able to prepare session. That means all it able to like what I'm telling there. Whatever the setup is required about to interact with the database, that everything could be done here inside this Hibernate software. Okay, fine. Next one is after that, as part of getting ready this Hibernate configuration file, mapping file is also be ready. Why? Because mapping file name is also be specified in the configuration file. So mapping file is also be loaded. Mapping file is also be loaded. Mapping file is also be provided here. That's the thing here we have to understand. Right, that's okay. Next one is create a persistence object. Or the next one, create a persistence object with the persistence data. That's nice. And I want to create persistence object. This is like what next one here, EMP1. Now here what we have to do, ENO 111, ename AAA, ECell 5000. For example, I provided this data. Okay, ENO 111, ename AAA, ECell is equal to 5000. The data is available. Okay, that is about like what there, EMP1. Now this is the meaning of like what they're creating persistence object with the persistence data. That's okay, right? Nice. Next one is what there, perform the persistence operation. Observe carefully how we are able to perform this persistence operation. No, simple. Here we are going to call some save of EMP1 object. save of emp1 object. When we call the save of emp1 object, automatically client application will submit that emp1 object to Hibernate software. Okay, directly it will go to like over there Hibernate software. That's it. In Hibernate software, in Hibernate software, what we are able to do there, guys? Now tell me in Hibernate software here. All right, whenever we perform the save of emp1, then immediately Hibernate software will identify the name and location of the Hibernate configuration file from, sorry, Hibernate software will identify the required mapping file from like what there Hibernate configuration file. It able to get mapping file name and location from the configuration file. After getting these, Hibernate software will go to mapping file. In the mapping file, it able to understand mapping details, employee to emp1 table, envo to ename, esal to ename to ename, esal to esal, eaddr to eaddr. Of course, it's not available. Just leave this one. These mapping details are identified. After getting all these mapping details, now what Hibernate software is able to do, Hibernate software will create a SQL query internally with respect to the same method. It able to create SQL query internally, insert into something else now. Then it will execute that SQL query. By the execution of that SQL query, automatically the record what exactly it is available, that record is going to be inserted in the database table. The record which is available there, that record is going to be inserted in the database table. What record is going to be inserted in the database table? Now, if you observe this, the data is like what there 111 yeah 5000 111 like yeah. Then after this 5000, the data is available like this. That record is going to be inserted in the database. By this, the total operation is going to be performed. Okay, right, sir. Now I want to show once again the point now. When we perform persistence operations, what client application will do? Client application will send that persistence object to the Hibernate software. Hibernate software will know the name and location of the mapping file from configuration file. When it identifies the name and location, Hibernate software will go inside the mapping file. Inside the mapping file, Hibernate software will identify the mapping details between POSO class name and table and all these things. On the basis of this mapped database table names and all these things, automatically some query will be created internally. Then that by the execution of that query, automatically database operation is going to be performed. Okay, automatically the database operation will be performed. By performing the database operation, automatically the record will be saved onto the database table. Now it is saved here. That's it. This is what exactly the meaning of like what their Hibernate software activities. All right, so now let's understand this point clearly. Right here, Hibernate software is a crucial. Everything it is able to perform. It is an intelligent one here. Hibernate software. Hibernate software, or else when we perform persistence operation at client application, then Hibernate software will perform the following actions. What actions that Hibernate software is able to perform there? Okay. Now observe carefully. When we perform the persistence operation at client application, then the Hibernate software will perform the following actions. Alright. Now first one. What this Hibernate software is able to do there? Observe carefully. Hibernate software will send the, that means will take, Hibernate software will take the persistence object from client application. Next one. Hibernate software, after taking the persistence object from the client application, Hibernate software will go to, will find the name and location of the mapping file from the configuration file, from the Hibernate configuration file. Point number 3. Hibernate software will get all the mapping details from the mapping file. Hibernate software will get all the mapping details from the mapping file. Like what are the various mapping details here we are able to get here? What mapping details here we want to get? If you observe this, the mapping details like what there? Mapping details like table name, ID column, that means primary key column, common normal column, on the basis of the POSO class name, that means POSO class name, then ID property and normal properties. Okay. Then fourth one, Hibernate software will prepare SQL query internally on the basis of the mapping details. Next one, Hibernate software. Hibernate software will execute the created, the generated SQL query. Hibernate software will create the generated SQL query. Generated SQL query internally and performs the database operation. And performs the database operations. Right, so now this is exactly the overview. What's available? Now try to understand it clearly. Okay. Right, sir. Guys, all of you understand this? What exactly that Hibernate software is doing that? All of you are getting clarity on this? What you are getting there? Now see this diagram once again here. What exactly the responsibilities of the Hibernate software? Right. This is what exactly the Hibernate, not more than this. Copy this. Okay. Right. So now finally here what we understood, that internal flow of execution in Hibernate software, that we understood clearly. Okay, fine. Now one more point is available. We have to understand this another point here, one small note here. How Hibernate is able to prepare the SQL queries. Guys, now tell me, from SQL, that means from database to database, SQL queries are same or varied? From one database to another database, SQL queries are same or varied? Tell me, guys. That means what I'm asking there, SQL queries are same or different with the databases? Different. SQL queries are different. Now here my question is, Hibernate software, Hibernate software is performing database operations by creating SQL queries. But how Hibernate software is creating SQL queries? How Hibernate software is preparing SQL queries? On the basis of which database model it is creating SQL queries? All right. Now the point is what? Hibernate software will use dialect property in a Hibernate configuration file to get the database name, to get the database name in order to create, in order to create SQL queries. So dialect properties existed here. The dialect property is able to take like what there some values here, something here we can understand. Examples for dialect. Right, sir. Example for dialect here we can understand there. Oracle dialect, MySQL dialect, and so on. So many things here we are able to use on the basis of the databases. If we use the dialect property, on the basis of the dialect property only, we are able to get like what we are able to perform the database operations. Okay. Okay. So this is another one. Right. So this is overall information about like what the configuration file. That means information about what the total uh, like Hibernate architecture. Next one is after this, steps to prepare Hibernate applications. Right. Now steps to prepare Hibernate applications. What exactly the steps here we are having to prepare Hibernate applications? Alright, if you want to prepare steps, no points which I'm telling to you, now try to understand it clearly. Create persistence class, create persistence class, create mapping file, create Hibernate configuration file, Then after this, create client application. These are only the thing here we have to prepare. Okay. Overall, what we have to do there: create persistence class, create mapping file, create Hibernate configuration file, create client application. Okay. Now here we have to understand how we are able to create this persistence class. To prepare these persistence classes, to create persistence class, what exactly the work here we have to do? What we have to do? Okay. See this clearly. First of all, now create a persistence class. If you have to this, the first point, create persistence class. What is the main purpose of the persistence class now? The main purpose of persistence class is to create persistence object in order to perform the persistence operations. In order to perform the persistence operations. Right. So what is the meaning of the persistence operations? In order to create the persistence operations, like insert the data, update, search, delete, and so on. Right. But how we are able to prepare this content here? Okay. Now here, then what next one give after this, after completion of this one? To prepare persistence classes, we have to use the following guidelines. What are the various guidelines here we have to perform there? Now, what are the various guidelines here we are having? Try to understand this. Alright, so the very first one is like what there? Hibernate persistence class. Hibernate persistence class must be a POSO class. Hibernate persistence class must be a POSO class. Hibernate persistence class must be a POSO class. It must not extend or implement any predefined library except java.io.serializable. For what purpose here we are using java.io.serializable. Okay. This is what we have to understand clearly. Right, sir. Next one is after this persistence class. Persistence class is nothing but bean class only. Must be public. It must not be abstract and a final. It must be public. It must not be abstract and a final. Persistence class must be public. It must not be abstract and a final. Okay. Now here we have to understand clearly how it is, what is the requirement of public, what is the requirement of non-abstract, and what is the requirement of final here. If you understand these points, no? If you understand these points, no? What you are getting there? Alright. The main purpose of public is to create object by Hibernate software. For example, Hibernate software is available and persistence class is also existed here. But persistence class, if you want to create an object for the persistence class, Hibernate software require the scope of the constructor or not? Persistence class constructor, the scope is required or not? Then to provide scope for the persistence class, to provide scope to the persistence class, we need to declare that persistence classes were there public. That is the requirement of the public, not more than this. Okay, fine. Second point here I'm telling to you. Next one is, what's the main purpose of the final? That means abstract here. The main purpose of the main purpose of the main purpose of the abstract. The main purpose of the abstract is to allow to create object for the persistence class. Why? Because if it is an abstract now, how it is possible to create an object? Not possible to create an object here. So if you want to create an object, then the persistence class should not be abstract here. Persistence class should not be abstract. If it is an abstract, not possible to create an object. Okay. Okay. Right, sir. Next one is like what there after completion of this point. No? Why it is final? If you think about the final, there the point is what? In some situations, in some cases, we have to extend one bean class to another bean class in order to improve reusability. It is required. So the bean classes, that means the POSO classes, persistence classes must not be final. If it is final, Not possible to provide inheritance relation between bean classes. Not possible to extend one bean class to another bean class. That's it. Observe carefully. Clear? Alright, sir. Then after this, after understanding this particular one, what next one here we have to do there after completion of this? Alright, sir. Understand this. These are the points here we can understand now. Next one is point number three. Point number three. In persistence classes, all properties must be declared as private. All properties must be declared as what? Private. Next one, number four. In persistence classes, all methods must be declared as a public. And before this, remember this, in persistence classes, we must provide a separate set of, we must provide a separate set of set xxx method and get xxx method for each and every property. Next one, in persistence class, in the persistence class, all methods must be declared as public. In persistence classes, all methods must be declared as public. Okay. For what purpose these methods are private? Sorry, properties are private, methods are public. No, for what purpose there? Okay. Right. Now try to recognize this point clearly. What I'm telling to you. All right. So the above two properties are able to improve encapsulation. The above two properties are able to improve what their encapsulation. How encapsulation is going to be improved here with this? How encapsulation is going to be improved here? Point is very clear. Properties are private, but methods are public. In the sense, every data must be provided through the setters and getters only. Inside the setters and getters, now data will be binded with the coding part. So encapsulation is what there, bind up of the data and coding part. Binding up of the data and coding part, that is called as what there, encapsulation. Okay, that encapsulation here we are able to achieve in the Java Bean classes just by declaring all properties as private and all behaviors as what they're public. That's it. Now this is the clear-cut information here we can understand about this content here. Clear-cut information that we have to understand. Next one after this. Next one is constructors. Now coming to the constructors here. In the persistence classes, if you want to provide any constructor, then provide a constructor but it must be public and zero argument. Public and zero argument constructor. Why? Because why this public and zero argument constructor? Why? Because Hibernate software will search and execute public and zero argument construct only. Public and zero argument construct only while creating persistence object. While creating what object here? Persistence object. Clear? Fine. This is another point that we have to know, that we have to understand. And the next point. All right, sir. Do one thing, guys. Then two more points are available. I'll explain the two more points, and tomorrow we are going to see the two more points. Guys, one small information to all of you guys. Please recognize this. Tomorrow, everybody has to join with the webinar on a new link. So, for the registered student, you will get link today by mail. Okay, and please recognize this. While joining with the webinar, there is a registration form. There is a registration form where we must enter the following details. What details here we have to provide there? First name. In a first name, Durgasoft provided admission number. We have to enter this. Don't write your first name. First name should be like what? The Durgasoft provided admission number. As everybody, observe carefully what I am telling to you. Durgasoft provided admission number. Last name. You can provide your name. Then after this, email ID. As usual, you can provide your email ID. Registered email ID. In our office, what email ID you have given there? The same registered email ID we have to provide. Mobile number. Valid mobile number. Right, sir? Like this. These are the details here we have to provide. All the details are mandatory, but especially this is mandatory. In the case, clearly I'm telling there, if you write it wrong, and moreover, Durga will provide ID number in uppercase letters. In uppercase. If you write it wrong, you will not be eligible to attend this class. You are not eligible to attend the classes. Please recognize this. So these are mandatory for everybody, guys. Everybody has to follow this. So here itself in the class official, I'm telling that in place of this first name, we have to enter Durgasoft has given some ID numbers. Okay. So those who are attending offline there, you had your ID numbers in our ID card. In that ID numbers, there we have to provide our content. Okay. If you're not aware about ID numbers, just please get confirmation from get details from the office. Already I given some numbers already to you. Then we can connect with our office. There we can get the data. So today you are able to get like a mail with the Hibernate new link information. Fine. And the mobile number we can contact with the mobile number. For more, contact with mobile number 7386 095 600. So our admin people will check for your, that means your admission number, then they're able to provide. If not, if it is not the case now, they will talk with you regarding that. But this formality here we must provide. Everybody, please recognize this, what I'm telling you guys. Okay, that's all guys. And just let us open the Springer class. I'm going to talk about Spring class there. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Chiran. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.